Hey guys, this is Konrad, Yerba Mate Addict here, and in today's video I have something, or rather someone special for you guys, an interview with an unapologetically human veteran email marketer and B2B copywriter, Nate Wright. Nate has founded and currently operates #1 email marketing agency on Upwork. He has created cold email training for Mailshake and co-hosted a show with Oren Klaff, a famous author of a book, Pitch Anything. But let's put accolades aside and let's talk why I'm bringing this interview. Nate is somebody that, in my opinion, has the most knowledge and real actual wisdom when it comes to B2B copywriting and cold email, specifically cold email marketing. I think there's a lot of people who know something, but he has got, I think, one of the longest tenures in this space. And, he's currently also my mentor. And in the beginning, when I first had the interview with him, which I released before on my podcast, and right now I'm releasing the video, the first time, the reason I invited him was because I really like his style. He's super honest. He basically says what he thinks, and he really doesn't fluff around. Like, there is a lot of, you will hear in this interview a lot of golden nuggets. You can basically take your notepad and you can keep writing for more than an hour, and it's not going to be an overstatement. So I just basically decided that this is, such an insightful interview that I have to release it also on YouTube. So for this reason, I'm recording this short intro here to just kind of intro you guys into this interview, like what you can expect. We talked on topics ranging from, how to get good at, like, what's most important in becoming a great cold emailer. Is it a salesmanship? Is it a copywriting background? We talk on the situation at hand, about the COVID situation, about Nate's plans, and in general about some topics related to both cold email and copywriting. It's hard to distill this interview into a few points. You also find in the description, you're going to find book recommendations by Nate. There's also a bunch of really amazing books that will give you a lot of insights into, in general, direct response copywriting, but also marketing and cold email. So without further ado, I invite you guys to the whole interview and enjoy the ride. Cheerios. So first off, thanks a lot for for stopping by. That's a big one for me, because it's just the start of the podcasting journey. I mean, I already got a couple interviews I've done, but it's still early stages. So trying to figure out the format and like what's the best way to go about it. But as for for how kind of a background as to how I know about you is that I've been in the cold email space for like a year now. Mm-hmm. And then I remember somehow I got into Oren Klaff, I think, and then somehow I discovered you, and then also some interviews. So I kind of knew about it for a long time, about you, but then I think you haven't really been active much, like also as we were touching in the beginning, that you haven't been really active in the past few months. So I just kind of forgot. And then just this like couple months ago, I remembered because of the webinar and something. I think I was like, oh yeah, Nate, that would be, now I'm starting a podcast. He would be a perfect person to talk about.
I appreciate you showing up for, a couple of the Caving It Up series. Yeah, we're up there. Seventh gathering is tomorrow. So it's Thursdays. Last Thursdays was really, really good. We had about 15 people, which for a Zoom call where everyone's a panelist, 15 people is like, that's a full room. There's a lot of people talking, but a lot of laughter, a lot of good pro-life tips and pro-business tips, some hilarious stories. One guy busted out his guitar and just impromptu created a theme song for it. So it's been good. It's one of those things that people just keep showing up for. So some days we have a handful, some days we have a full house. I was bummed out, to be honest with you, in the beginning, because I thought this whole caving it up virtual gathering idea was that I was late to the game. I thought I was late to the game. I was like, oh, geez, virtual gathering. Now, I've been doing these things for a long time pre-crisis, but now it's cool. So I'm like, okay. And I also was kind of bummed out because I wanted to have I wanted to max out 100 registrants in the room, but realistically, the quality of the conversation goes down when the number goes up. So, there's that balance of usefulness, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with social science, but like Dunbar's number. Are you familiar with that?
Dunbar's number.
So what you can look it up.
Rings a bell, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's the maximum number of meaningful social connections one person can have. So some people say it's around 150, some say it's around 250. So they've got different numbers for this. How many people could be in a live group session? And people would think, okay, I should ask, if I want to do one of these live gatherings, I should probably ask someone that's done webinars or webinar panels before, like how much is too much? We all know how little is too little. I mean, as long as you got two people talking to each other, you got something. But I think that's the wrong place to ask. You should actually look at group therapy people that moderate group therapy sessions, because what's happening in a lot of these gatherings is the level of intimacy required is higher because people are going through some real shit. You have one person sharing that who's highly talented, has worked the highest levels of Microsoft and done freelancing and art and music. I mean, the guy's a very incredible career, and he's driving for Uber Eats right now to supplement the income. So that's a level of intimacy that takes time to build, but also for newcomers, in order to participate, you need to be able to share a bit more. So if you think about a group therapy session, or things like Alcoholics Anonymous, or any place where they're going to be rocking, free donuts and coffee, typically speaking, it might be between maybe 5 to 15.
Yeah. 10. Yeah.
So it's probably, I bet you if I looked hard enough, I bet you I could find the actual number. I bet you someone's done that research to figure out what the maximum number in a group could be based on how long the session is. Because if it's too short, there's not going to be enough time for people to participate.
It also depends on the length.
Yeah, so the science of a virtual gathering. So we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing it post-crisis. It might be one of those things I whittle down to once a week or twice a month. That's what I did with Binbox Attack, is we did them twice a month after, when we were doing the weekly workouts a couple of years ago. So, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, I signed up for that, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just one of those, I do that work a lot, like live rewriting. when I'm on webinars and when companies hire me to train, there's always that live element, and it has a certain level of entertainment value, right? So are you good? Are you good enough to do it live? Like you're one of those musicians that, they've got to like have their voice dubbed in to sound good, and use the auto tune, or could you actually like bust out a good live performance on the street corner? So for me, it's kind of, am I badass enough to do that? But for the people that have participated over the years, that's when the best stuff comes out. Like that's the best material to work through, and because it's unscripted, and being able to watch the process. Like I've been on, at kind of business events and business webinars and things, like tons of them over the years. And I've seen people do like live teardowns of landing pages. I think that's really useful. Like a good conversion guy, a good growth hacker, like watching them work and how they think about things. It's fascinating. So I've tried to apply the same thing to email, and I was like, wow, I'm onto something here. How about we do these live writing workouts and go from there? But I realized that sounded cool, yeah. But doing it ongoing, there still needs to be some form of progression, because there's a lot, as you know, you're in the space, there's a lot of stuff to cover. And there's a lot of different methodologies and frameworks, and there's different trends. There's different things technically that change. So building out something that was more sequenced made more sense. But once we were done with the sequence, like once I finished Hero's Journey, and I finished, journalism frameworks, and I finished some of the core psychological frameworks, I kind of ran out of steam. And it's something that we were going to charge for, and I was going to be, it's going to be a secondary source of revenue, blah, blah, blah. But there aren't that many people out there that can get someone to watch a recording, the replay of their webinar ever. I've got a whole folder full of replays that I've never watched. Some that I paid for, but I never watched. So I don't know. It's at the end of the day, like people, you have to align what you're doing with, fear and desire, right? It's the push and the pull. So you either need to scare them into doing it. Like if you don't do this, you're going to suck for the rest of your life. Or like, do you want to be more badass, more hot, more sexy? Then you should do this. So, and that's the, it's tough to sustain that. Working out sounds cool in January when you do your New Year's resolutions, yeah. But when you're, when February hits, or January 2nd hits, it seems less exciting.
Or the first weekend, or yeah, exactly. I mean, from I don't know about you, but from me, the big challenge with that is that, like, I don't know if you get to that level, but for me, when it comes to copywriting, like doing it live on the spot is super tough. Like the mental resources to do it properly, like not just to show off and do something, but like actually produce something that's actually close to what's gonna be in the future. Mm-hmm. Because of how copywriting process works, of like figuring out different ideas, scratching them, thinking of new ways. It's like, I don't know, maybe you can get to that level. I don't know. Maybe you can, tell me I'm wrong, but I think it's like only the best almost can go there where it's actually meaningful.
Keep in mind that the process of teaching something, when you get to the point that you start teaching it or showing people how a certain piece of it's done, even if it's a small component, forces you to think about what the process is. Because there's writers out there, in the fiction world, that, Stephen King, some of the biggest ones, the gal that did The Handmaid's Tale, what's her name? Margaret Atwood,
Hmm.
that, you look at them in the kind of the development space, in the more intellectual space, like Robert Greene, who did 48 Laws of Power and all of those books.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's not one of them that doesn't have a process in place. Now, their processes are different. They have different rituals, but the discipline of it is important. Now, with email, it's really short format. Like if you're an ad copy person, they'll sit down and brainstorm and to find out that perfect headline, but there's still a process behind how they research things. I'm reading rereading a book right now called Decisive. It was written 5 years ago, I think. Maybe it's 10. No, probably closer to 10 years ago, by Chip and Dan Heath. They've written a couple of different really good books. They're academics, and Made to Stick, I think it was the one that put them on the map in the business world, talking about sticky products, but the science behind it. Anyways, in Decisive, they talk about how people choose things, how they make choices, how they make decisions, and all the science behind that. And there's basic concepts in there, like willpower is a muscle and it needs to be fed. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you don't have sugar in your system, if your glucose levels are low, it's harder to make decisions, right? But they go into detail about frameworks and about processes and systems, that there are actually ways of taking very abstract things and making them, the process, predictable. Not the outcomes, but the process is predictable. Like for me, when I get super blocked, I have to go back to frameworks. I have to go back to the actual mental models that are used to come up with something. So if someone brings me, like, I'm sure you've seen it before, and say, okay, it's a B2B consultant that wants to send a cold email to enterprise IT to book a meeting, a strategy call, right? And no one knows who the B2B consultant is. They think they're known, but they're not known. And their targeting is all over the place. And their offering is not gelled. They got nothing, basically, right? But you still want to help them. So like, what does email 1 look like? Email 2, email 3? Is there only one email? Is email the best choice? So you start writing that. And so like, how many ways could you ask for a meeting to a stranger? How many ways could you sell a phone call that it's worth 20 minutes on your calendar, you committing, hey, stranger, I want you to commit 20 minutes of your life to talk to me. And it's, there's a certain level of, high level of assumptions that need to be made when we write cold, right? We have to guess a lot. But when you're going through that process, there are certain things that, certain frameworks, like my basic framework I came up with, and I probably stole it from somewhere. Like, there is nothing new under the sun, right? It's Ecclesiastes, King Solomon, the wisest man in history. There's nothing new under the sun. I'm not sure where I stole a lot of this stuff from, but it's why me, why you, why now, what next? Why me? So I need to answer this. Why me? Why are you reaching out to little old Nate in this big world of business? Why you? Like, wait, who are you? Why now? Like, why did you just interrupt my day? And what next? What do you want me to do? So that's a very basic framework that if I'm stuck on something, it doesn't sound right. Okay, does it answer these questions? That is a model of a checklist. It's a checklist model. They've got other frameworks like Piero's Journey. What is the old world? What is the new world that you're promising? Is your product or service framed as the elixir of life? Who's the villain, the shadow? And is the reader of the email going to identify as the hero? Or is the conflict? Then you look at the screenwriting. Okay, what's the value change? If you're starting the email using the fear card that if you don't do this thing, it's a ticking time bomb, right? Mm-hmm. Webinar is going to close soon. We're not sharing a replay ever.
The
except when
urgency.
in a bundle pack online in a year and a half and trying to make it seem new because we're too lazy to come up with something new for yeah. I don't mean to dog on ultimate bundles, but there's a lot of generic pre-canned stuff that was in the pack. There was some good stuff in there too, actually. There was, a good live offer, a few other good things, but but that's another thing. And so you got a framework, so you run it through that, and that's more. It could be run as a checklist, or it could be run as a process. What's the beginning, the middle, and the end? Or what's the ask? Like, what am I asking them to do? Maybe I need to not ask them to do anything. So you write a cold email without an ask in it. Do you want them to reply? Do you want them to click? Or do you just want them to read? So there's certain frameworks when you get stuck on it that I'll run through, and I'll look at it. I'll look at an email. It's like, okay. Sometimes I'll just go into autopilot. You've done enough volume now that you've cranked out tons of unique campaigns, and now you're like, okay, you may not have a set process that you use, but you absolutely are using different processes. You may be switching a lot, and I think that the big lesson learned when you teach things or showing people how to do things is that you have to figure out what your own process is, even if it's gooey and strange and from the gut. Like, how'd you come up with that? I don't know. Well, how am I going to be able to make magic happen again if I don't know how the hell I did something? Like somebody asked me, how did you meet your wife? Well, she left her license at an event, her driver's license at an event that I was producing, and talked about, it was a dance event, and talked about dancing with an old guy and me, right? And but no, what actually happened is I come out of a string of bad relationships. I created a social event because I needed to scratch that itch. And I ran Facebook ads to single women that were my age because I wanted to meet single women that were my age. And that's, and then there is, of course, still magic there. Like, she eventually showed up. She had RSVP'd for 6 of them without showing up. One of those people that marks yes and doesn't show. I don't know if that's true or not, but there was still a process in place that for me, I wanted to create an environment that was fun. I can make friends. And if I can meet a lady, experience some romance, love, long-term relationship, whatever, bonus. So I created an environment that was ideal for me. It was a swing dance. So like old vintage dancing. So give me a chance to dress up, throw on a tie, bust out the suspenders, my fancy shoes, and it kind of forced me to go through that. And I did it I'd been doing it for like a year at that point, and twice a month. And it was fun, and I had a lot of successes. I had some failures along the way, but that's how I met my wife. But there was still some level of intention behind it. So if I want to make friends, so this is macro level stuff, right? And this is part of the process with cold email and with trying to get a stranger to cough up time on their phone, carve out their time or knowledge. Answering a question still requires a certain level of intimacy if you don't know who the hell you are. If you hadn't gone to caving it up and actually we didn't interact first, I wouldn't have said yes to the podcast. So, right?
Yeah.
So at a macro level, the things like friends, like I fall under the category of the guy who's 40, he just turned 40 last year, who...
Congrats.
Thank you. I survived to 40. So, and like, I don't have as many friends as I wish I did. Like I'm ex-military. My friends are scattered all over the place. I've been able to maintain friendships, long distance relationships, right? Oh no, it's long distance. A handful of those, but I miss having like the porch hang. My buddies and I when I was living in Seattle, I used to, grab a half rack of cheap beer and a pack of expensive smokes and sit there and just talk for hours. It's good. It was simple. I miss that kind of stuff. I miss doing crazy projects like live with people. And I have a couple of friends down here, but I want more. So, I could wish for it or I could ask for it. Hey, I want to be friends with you. That's awkward. But like, it gets you to think about like, how do you take a stranger and turn them into an associate and turn them into a peer, a friend, or into a client. So that's, and we don't need to guess the answer there. That answer is in psychology. All the answers for that question are in psychology.
Exactly.
So anyways, you called this a ramble, right?
Yeah, that was
banter. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be banter. That means I'm supposed to let you talk too. So, that's why I don't have friends.
No, I like to listen if the topic is interesting. So that was definitely a good insight, and resonates quite heavily with me, because I've been trying to also now been doing the cold email myself for a while. I mean, since the beginning, basically, writing and making the campaigns and almost everything. But now, I realize there is like a very, low kind of, how do you say, threshold where you cannot go above, where you do everything yourself. So I've been trying to download all my knowledge into trainings to my, like new employees. Like copywriting and list building and everything. I was like, Jesus, that's like so difficult. Like I never like, I started questioning like myself, like, how did I come up with this? Like, what's my process for this? And
and sometimes the process is you tried 30 things at 3:00 in the morning because you had a deadline in a couple of hours, right?
So, yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm gonna wake up early to get this banged up. Yeah, no, but that's still part of the process. That's still a process. It's not gut instinct. It's that I need to solve this problem so I could pay this bill or save face. Or maintain my reputation. So I'm going to go in and try a bunch of different things. I'm going to knock on a lot of doors. I'm going to join every Facebook group and ask everyone the same question to try to figure out what the answer is. Because I still follow people. I mean, it's the longer I've been doing this, you kind of move up that ladder, right? But what ends up happening is there's the pool of mentors shrinks. So the people whose stuff I used to follow, some of them, I think I can honestly say that I've exceeded because I focused just in on email. The crap. I still write things like landing pages, and I'm ghostwriting a business book right now for somebody. So I do other stuff. That's been hard. Oh my God. That's a whole different skill set. It's like switching from sprinting to running marathons. It's really a whole different thing. I'm learning a lot, but your pool of mentors and your discipline shrinks. So as you move up, there's less people that are above your level that have something. Now, granted, my peers all have something to teach me. Like the guy, John, was it Buchan? I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Oh yeah, John. Yeah, John Buchan.
Yeah, Charm Offensive. Yeah. I don't totally agree with everything he does, but he puts good stuff out and it at least gets the juices flowing. I consider him at the same level as me. Like we've had the same type of experience, and he does it a different style and he's rocking it right now. And so I learn a little bit from that. Neville Medora from the Killer Copywriting course, his stuff is, I never bought his course, but his advice has been good. I appreciate his dedication to the swipe file. I have one of those now because of it, but I would consider him more of a peer now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that most of my work right now is hired gun. And most of it now is covered freaking NDAs and stuff because it's done for other agencies. So I'll, whore myself out all these other agencies that write bigger campaigns. And it's good because it gives me a chance to break out of the entrepreneur and startup space and work on bigger projects where you have a much smaller box to work in. And they already know the solution. Then you just need words. That's been different. So I look out and see things like that. So I've been, I honestly can't think of, and that's one of my things this year, actually, one of my goals this year, that I still need to find a mentor. And I've got a few clients that are different sorts of mentors to me. I've got folks over the years who have, popped on a couple of phone calls with me just to help me solve harder problems. But that's what ends up happening when you really go narrow. People tell you, I've been through the process. You try a bunch of different things out, find out what you're good at, double down, triple down, quadruple down, push volume, get really fucking good at it, teach it if you can, publish, speak, grow your level of status in the space so that it's easier to close deals. That's the reason to do it, right?
Yeah.
Legit social proof. Yeah, I was quoted in Bloomberg, but you don't see that on my website right now because it's not going to help me close deals with a particular group. It might with others. I don't know. And it had nothing to do with copywriting. Nothing to do with copywriting. But that's something that I'm just kind of curious for you right now. Where are you getting your advice from now? Because you've been at it. You've put in enough reps now that you're no longer a beginner. You're definitely. I've read your stuff. It's better than my stuff was after the first year. So what's the where do you find those little pockets of wisdom so you can actually get better?
Yeah, that's a good question to me. From me, I think made a podcast episode now about it. And that's also a question I wanted to ask you about. Is that for me, I realized that when getting better at something, at some point, as you said, you kind of hit the end point as to, there's mentors and you can't really get more from them. Yep. So what I've tried to do is basically expand where I'm getting the knowledge from. So let's say everyone in the cold email space is mostly getting the advice from cold email experts. I try to get it from negotiation books or experts like Chris Voss or something like that.
Love his book.
Yeah, stuff like that, or from some sales people, or from cold calling books, or from something that's related but it's not exactly in that field. Yep. And has a unique perspective. And then that's why my episode was holding two conflicting ideas in your head. And this was a question I had to you, which is, do you think in general, let's say in cold email or in general in B2B copywriting, I would say cold email, let's say, do you think it's more important to have a fundamentals or background of marketing or of copywriting? And in general, do you think that
neither? No, sales. People need a background in sales. That's the most specifically things that require a lot of conversation, because email copywriting specifically is about starting and continuing conversations. It's exchange. It's like writing newsletters. I have a different branch in my company that one of my business partners runs now does nothing but e-commerce. And that's the point there is to drive a click. It's still, it's not conversational. There isn't multiple exchanges, and in B2B, there's selling involved. So you need to become really good at cold opens, and you also need to be really good at selling. You talked before, about places you go. Some of the things you do is look at sales. But I think that I don't, and oftentimes when people like get into the space, they have to do their own selling. You have to close your own clients, right? You eventually have to get on the phone with them. That requires sales. So I think that that's the most important skill set for sure. The rest of the stuff could be taught. Selling can be taught, but it requires a lot of reps. It's not like learning science or physics, right? And if you learn physics, you can understand that if you drop something on Earth, it's going to fall at a certain speed. If you drop something on Mars, it's going to fall at a different speed. And, hot things won't stay hot and cold things won't stay cold. If there's, things like entropy, you can learn this stuff, but I don't have to go to space to learn it. With email, I could learn a lot of stuff without having to do it. I can learn story structure without writing stories. I can learn the frameworks and use it and apply it to email. I could apply negotiating tactics like tactical empathy tactics and apply them to email without ever having negotiated somebody's life or negotiated a big business deal. Sales, though, there's no substitute for reps. You got to go in there and do it to really understand it, and also to the discomfort. It's the equivalent of a pre-crafted cold call script, right? So that's hands down. Like if I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to hire someone maybe whose talking skills are good and whose writing skills are good, but who has at least survived in the sales pit before, has had to pound the phones, has had to, working at a counter at a freaking service desk at Best Buy. Like they've been in those kind of complex sales environments that are frankly unsettling. I don't think anyone like, so man, there's some strange ones out there, like, oh man, I'm so excited about this cold call campaign I'm doing next week. Right.
So you think you would rather have someone who's been, let's say, selling on their life on the phone
or in person and some sort of
in person, but they have not really experience with copywriting or like, writing emails? Like you would rather have them than someone who's a copywriter, let's say?
They could be taught. They're more adaptable. They know how to read the room better. And that's, for me, I almost failed out of English in high school and then ended up pursuing that as a degree in college. I have a bachelor's of science in English because the school I went to didn't provide bachelor's of arts degrees. And then I went into tech after that and didn't touch writing since. So it was just a degree that I got, but I spent time selling in a Fortune 500 company. I spent time selling. I had a lot of interesting trainers. The first person that ever taught me how to sell was a boss at a laptop repair shop who was from Morocco, and he had learned to selling melons on a street corner when he was 10 years old in Morocco. So he was a street vendor, and his salesmanship when it came to getting someone to, pay a couple $100 to fix paying $200 to fix a $500 laptop was stellar. He was so good. So, and after that I learned from, I was working as a headhunter in a Fortune 500 company, and I had to do my own headhunting. So interviewing candidates as well as selling, trying to say, hey, are you willing to pay $30,000 to hire this person? So I had to learn about cold calling and about follow-ups and nurturing and, dealing with gatekeepers and all of those aspects of things. That's when I first started cold emailing too, not knowing what it was. Done it, pushing things out manually. Then after that, I received mentorship in different places after that. One of my early business partners, Rich Thompson, he's runs an events company up in Seattle now. He was like one of these sales guys that will rip through 5 books a week. and he was super, you really had and he put in the reps. He would sit down. I was like, yeah, I learned this new thing in the book. So I'm going to put in reps with this new tactic. I'm going to put in like 1,000 reps, like just in the next couple of weeks. So I learned a lot from him. So like if I look at that trajectory, that if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. Like the writing piece could still be taught. Like you could even take a not good writer, someone that's got bad grammar and they get writer's block, and you could still turn them into a copywriter if they know how to talk. Because good email copy is conversational. Right? That's what makes your copy better. Right? That's why you're able to make a living doing this now. It's conversational. There's nothing formal about what you write. In fact, it's actually, I think, like almost aggressively informal.
Yeah.
So, but it's conversational. It's like, let's throw back a couple of drinks, juice up a little bit, and talk about some shit. Maybe you'll buy something from me. Right?
I mean, because like, for example, just to interrupt you a little bit, just so that, from my side, you can look at me like, when selling to people or in general, talking to people, like, I realized quickly in business, because I haven't been long in it. I've done just like traveling and different things that were unrelated. But I quickly saw that like one of the only things that I have, like a weapon that I can use, is kind of just like one, honesty, calling out some of the facts that probably people are thinking, and also like breaking the monotony of what everyone else is doing. So even if it might not be like the best, it's still gonna stand out at least, or it's gonna, maybe some people are not gonna like it at all. There's gonna be some people who are gonna resonate. So I was like, okay, I mean, I'd rather go this way and like double down on my strengths, or somewhere I had, a little bit of maybe edge of like making people smile, than trying to like really first like learn, like the other ways. So that's like how it developed for me. Like,
yeah, I mean, and you mentioned travel, right? Like you're from Poland, speak excellent English and write excellent English, and you live you're kicking it in Vietnam right now. I imagine you've traveled a lot of places, right?
Yeah. Like, like hitchhiked, and just like crazy.
And that puts you in awkward conversations. So and that's where that skill set developed. That's where you had to take, maybe a natural inclination, with people, and interacting with people, and like in an easy way about you're approachable, right? But that's where you put in your reps. It's hitching. Oh man, and being trapped in a car with someone. I remember I was in a train car with somebody on a train from Siena to Genoa in Italy. Yeah. And the guy, he was, I think it was like going up to meet his family or something. And he didn't speak a lick of English. I knew a little bit of German and a whole lot of English. And we talked for like, if you could call it talking, for like 3 hours using hand signals, and it just really became animated. And it's, I could think of all sorts of interactions I've had traveling all over the place that have, one of the guys that shows up to a lot of my Caving It Up things, and it's one of my oldest friends that I've done big projects with over the years. He traveled as a job. Like he was a sponsor for a vacuum cleaner company, and literally rolled a vacuum around the world.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Mr. Tibbs. So he's constantly being pulled out of his comfort zone, and that skill set he's adapted and turned it into a survival skill for all sorts of things. He's able to pick up work anywhere now. He'll never not have a job, and kind of plowing through the discomfort. So it's
Yeah, I mean, like you answered a bit through the stories you were telling before. You answered a bit of what my question was that because I saw in some of the other interviews, I think that you mentioned that you were the headhunter in one of those companies, and that you worked as an officer in the Air Force, and that you were sending cold emails. So the question before was supposed to be like, how did you go from there to being like the B2B copywriter and having #1 email agency on Upwork? And
I needed to make rent. That's the answer.
But now I see it was a lot of also like small steps in between, right?
Yeah, no, it came down to needing to make rent. Like the very real survival need. Like I needed to do something. So I got the job that I could and did best I could at that. And then eventually got to the point that I had to work from home. It wasn't it'd be so nice to work from home. I had to, because I was a single dad when I was doing the headhunting thing, and my daughter was autistic, and I was kept on getting called out at work because there was issues, and it was causing problems. Even with I had the best boss there, and there was only so much interference she could run for me for having to like leave early and things, and they were very much a on the clock sort of an organization, and it's I needed to make rent. So I started in marketing, and then over the years, as I got good at certain things and learned what I wasn't good at, I've built over 120 plus, I think 124 websites or something over the years. I sat down and counted it once. It was a lot. It was over 100, but I wasn't very good at it. I've shot video commercials. Wasn't very good at it. Produced events. I was good at that, but not great. So, there's a lot of things I tried that, still inform my process today, but it all required email. Email is a thing that but even in the beginning, my first big email marketing client was the film school, which was a screenwriting school in Seattle. And so it was run by a guy who used to be the head of faculty at the UCLA film school. He had trained with, he was the big acting coach in New York, the one that everyone's worked with.
Acting coach?
Adler, I think.
No idea.
Yeah, just one of the actor studio level, right? The guy was super, he'd get paid $100,000 for a script that was never made, right? That's what he do. He'd sell a script every couple of years, and he did a lot of teaching. Really, that guy's an absolute, just one of the smartest humans I've ever met. And he was, and that honestly, learning to sell is one thing. Screenwriting school, doing that, it was like a 3-week boot camp, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, just grinding writing. One of my instructors was the guy that wrote Rebel Without a Cause back in the 50s. James Dean, guy was, but that's who I had to write. I had to write newsletters for them. So you send something out, hey, what do you guys think of this? And they're like, hate it. I did you even proofread this thing? And I'll never forget this. This was a big moment for me. I'm sitting I'd been working there a couple of years. I was running all of their marketing, trying to be the jack of all trades. And it was a good gig. It was good paying, paid my rent and my business partner at the time's rent, which is great. But we're sitting around the table getting ready to do their big annual, it's a nonprofit school. So their big annual fundraiser where they get most of their money. And I suggested a few ideas for some things we could do differently to get more people to buy tickets. The tickets are like expensive, black tie event type of thing. And he says, "Oh, Nate, don't worry about that. I'm going to bring in a real copywriter to handle that." Oh my God. Oh, the guy's one of my mentors, and it absolutely fucking gutted me. It gutted me. So at the time, I didn't quite understand what a copywriter was. I didn't know what it was. I was doing it, but I was completely like, that seems like some strange, like boring writing job, I guess. And so I asked someone that I had done a project with. Her name was Lisa Loop. And I was like, "Lisa, I know what it was. I was marketing one of her workshops that the film school was hosting." I was like, "I'm really interested in copywriting. I don't even know what it is. I know that you were a copywriter down in Hollywood." So her husband was a screenwriter in Hollywood. She was a copywriter in Hollywood, which I thought was interesting. And so sat down and we got coffee, and one of my best friends and my best friend, he was an amazing writer, like a more ad copy style, sat down, and she, told me a little bit about what it's like and asked me a lot of questions, and I'm still friends with her now, but I didn't even know what it was. But I be told we're going to bring in a real copywriter. Oh my God. Just absolutely felt just like emotionally disemboweled, man. But at the time, I was a shitty copywriter. He was telling the truth. So
truth sometimes in the long run pays off if you meet someone and they give you that at the right time, I think.
You mentioned it as one of your skills, right? It's telling the truth. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I always, because I think it's also like some kind of feedback loop, right? Like you see, it kind of breaks people, and people start opening up, and people are like, you see it working, so you keep repeating it, and then you don't even realize. And then I started breaking it down later, like just thinking about it, last few months, just like thinking about, okay, like what's my secret sauce here? So that's the only thing that that came up. But like one of the questions I also had was like, what do you think, because you're still running the agency, right? The like cold email agency.
Yeah.
And you guys been running it for quite a while, so and it's a very, I would say, competitive field in a sense, like the agency world.
There are over 120,000 agencies in the US.
Yeah, it's quite crazy now, right? So like, so my question was like, and I'm trying to understand it now myself, like, what do you think it takes to basically get to the top? Maybe not like full top, but like get above the the noise and stay there, because it's one thing to get there, but it's also to stay there, right?
So I don't know if this is true. It's a theory. So just disclaimer, it's a theory. I think that if you're selling cold email, you shouldn't use cold email to sell cold email. If you are a newsletter person, you shouldn't use newsletters to sell newsletters. If you write Facebook ads, you shouldn't run a Facebook ad to sell Facebook ads. If you're an advertiser, you shouldn't put out ads to sell advertising. I really think that there's tons of exceptions that I've seen, but in my experience Upwork's been good to us. There's a lot of agencies that aren't wanting to play there. And honestly, the willingness to participate in a marketplace where you've got people trying to sell copy at $6 an hour when you're charging $100+ an hour.
I'm there too.
That's but I've made it. I mean, I mean, right now, and this is the scary part for me right now, is it was about a third up until like last year, is about a third of all of our inbound clients came via Upwork, usually via small projects. And then some of them developed into bigger projects, and they, clients that we ended up, making good money off of. The MailChimp expert directory, when I was more in the newsletter world, for a couple of years was a great source of new business. But like the reason I bring those up is those marketplaces, those directories, investing time in those paid off more than us sending out an email campaign to, hey, here's a cold email. You want to buy some cold emails from me? Here's a really awesome newsletter. Want to buy some newsletters from me? It's not as effective. It's almost like it needs to be a different kind of voice and a different kind of channel and medium. So
interesting perspective.
Now I've gotten business writing good cold emails. Like, that was a great email. I mean, the way that I met Oren Claff and started working with him is I sent him an email. I was like, hey, there's something like there's a little technical issue delivered. I keep on finding your stuff in my spam. I think the outside looking in, here's why. And I pulled up the headers and got into SPF, and SPF record was jacked up a little bit. And he got me on the phone eventually. And then he flew me down where I live down here now, but he flew me down to Carlsbad and I did a show with them. And then he flew me down and I taught a workshop, and then we did a couple different things together. But that was a cold email to him. So it wasn't a cold email campaign. I just crafted one. It was a 1-to-1, spent an hour and a half writing it, cold email. So that's the same with Mailshake. Same exact thing. I was able to develop that relationship because I sent Stujen a cold email. So 1-to-1, I think it's effective. But the short answer to your question is that is status and influence. Like podcasting for me, like being a guest, has been really helpful. Even if the podcast doesn't get a lot of exposure, the process of talking about what I do and that live, and once again, that live environment that we're talking about before, usually reveals the right answer, like better ways of doing things. And I'm better live than I am scripted. That's one of the reasons I haven't pursued being a keynote speaker or something. I'm interested in it because it's something I'm not good at that I'd like to be better at. And it'd be nice to pull in $10,000 for showing up for an hour. That'd be cool. Nice to do at least once, right? Yeah, remember that time that I was paid $10,000 and they put me up in a 3-star hotel? I got my first drink free at the after party for my drink. I got an extra drink ticket. You remember that? That hasn't happened yet. No, but honestly, at that stage, it's marketing. And here's the answer. I know I'm kind of dancing around it because it's something that
No, but there's no easy answer to this.
One, it's not something you're ever going to solve. You're not going to do a campaign or do a project or adjust your business or your marketing, your image. Be like, oh, wow, eureka, I found it. This is what it's going to take for me to stay above. Because there's other people constantly strategizing new ways to stay above. So one, it's a moving target. So it's a process. It's a habit. It's a practice more than it's a project or a campaign or a solution. It's a process. If you wanna keep a six pack, it is a lifestyle change. I have yet to be able to do that. I've tried. It's a lifestyle change. So that's the one thing. Two, even if you're a total badass marketer and badass at what you do, you're eventually going to have to pay some other smart people to look at it. So I've got other smart people that I hire to do things. And it's even if it's another copywriter, So that like your willingness to really pull yourself out and have an outsider help you with the campaign or an approach, even if they're just there for a small project, the amount that you can learn paying someone top dollar to solve something for you, like there's no substitute. And it sucks because it's expensive. And 3, status and influence. That's the only future-proof strategy out there, is that if you grow your status and influence in the space and in other related spaces, that cross-pollination between different business and industry ecosystems, and stay there, you will at least have a fighting chance, have the agility to be able to win over other people. But I mean, there's stuff you're doing right now. You're doing stuff publicly. There's too many people that hide out in their offices, and you know, some of them are really good because they, you know, agencies write amazing proposals or they have an amazing sales team. But for them to compete long term against other agencies, they've got to do something bigger. You know, Story Brand I don't agree with their approach. I think it's just a bastardization of Hero's Journey, but I do respect how they became such a big deal. They're huge. They're pulling in, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk, his agency was built Vayner Media. It's not ABC XYZ agency or the RMD consulting or whatever. It's Vayner because it's him that he built up a status big enough that he could say that. Now, granted, if he's also always adjusting. He's switching platforms all the time. He's very agile. I don't, once again, I don't agree with everything he says, but I definitely could respect his hustle. Like it's the amount of stuff he puts out. That's another agency getting it right. You're eventually going to have to write a book. You know, that's part of the thing because it's hard. And that's, I think that's the big thing is that like the best stuff is still hard. I've worked with the people I've worked with. It's because I've spent the time and done the hard work. I can't think of any, you know, I've had some big clients and some big projects that came in because I did some good marketing. Right. But the best relationships I have that have turned into like referral sources and like really helped me blow it up came from that one-on-one handcrafted, like not replicable stuff. So
yeah, and it's probably for most people it's a big disappointment to hear that, because like most people I think are looking for the tactics, not strategies. Like what can I do? And I think, yeah, touching on what you said, that from me, I realized this also, that, okay, there's like so much competition. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing, and you can try beating people at their game. But what if you just change the game? Like when you go, for example, I go now to LinkedIn and I try to start my podcast and I do that. This is obviously there's people doing that, but it's a smaller percent already because it's hard. It takes work. It's like most people give up after like 1 month or 2 weeks.
Well, and it's still mass marketing. It's still mass marketing. So much of this is about, in the agency space, is about relationship building. And there's agencies that don't have sales teams that are pulling in 8 figures without a sales team. That's impressive because they're masters at relationship. And granted, I still think for their long-term success, they're going to need sales and marketing and different things, like people like us, to help them, you know, bring in more business. But the stuff in mass, it's, you know, the willingness to sit down and just have a conversation with somebody is super important. Like there's, you just can't get around it. I mean, how are you supposed to know what people want to buy unless you talk to them? Like really talk to them. Like, so there's so much guesswork going on. That's part of the telling the truth. And part of the telling the truth is having to battle delusional thinking and battle guesswork. Like we don't need to guess. We could just ask. We could just ask, and that's that. It's advice I give a lot, and it's advice I should take more often, if that makes sense. It's like, if you wonder, just call them up and ask. I mean, I wonder how they do it. Like, I'm really curious about one of my clients right now was in the same startup incubator and is friends with the founder of SendGrid. I just found that out yesterday, and I'm like, oh my God, I wonder what it'd be like to talk to him. Well, I could just ask for an intro. I could just ask.
Yeah.
I asked someone the other day that works in Hollywood. I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could have Samuel Jackson record my voicemail for me? Have Samuel Jackson record my voicemail. He said, I could get that done for like a couple grand. Like, I bet you he would do it too. Like, he takes on commercial work, for him to show up someplace like down the street from his house and record something. You could probably get it done for a couple grand. I'm like, seriously? I was like, because I just asked the question, and if I really wanted it, like, is it worth it to me? Probably not. But it's, I wonder what it'd be like to be on that show. Well, let me just ask if I could be on the show. I don't want to pay for a ticket to that. Ask for a free ticket then. Like, hey, you have a gap in your conference there. And granted, there's not events going on now, but events are going to go gangbusters after all this. And I really think that if I'm going to put my profit hat on, that as I said, all the emails in the world, that the purpose and intent of cold email is to start a conversation with a stranger, to nurture it and get it off of email. Yeah. To actually have a face-to-face or a human or some sort of real-time interaction and do some business. That's the purpose of cold email in the sales sense. And that culminates with in person. So that's the apex. That's the goal, is to get to that point where you can actually like see these people in person and actually have some level of relationship. And I think that once the crisis, boils down, and it will eventually, I think it's going to take a lot longer than we want, and that sucks. But it's unfortunate. I'm seeing so many businesses in the event space. I'm sure you've written them, the conference event invite email.
No, never done. Actually.
You're about to get a lot of requests for it, because everyone and their brother is going to get back into the space, because they're going to hunger for the human connection. They're going to hungering and thirsting for it. And I think events are going to get gigantic, and I think they're going to become more competitive. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And yeah, I'm excited to play in that space when it opens back up again. I think during times like this is when I'm coaching people before podcasts. As I said, I'm not great at taking my own advice sometimes. I tell them, I was like, well, find a topic that people will disagree with. Like, what's going to piss off the podcast host? One of the upsides of downturns in the economy is that it kills off your competitors. So we might go from 120,000 marketing and digital agencies out there to 60,000 in the next year or two. That's less competition. So I hate using that phrasing for it. It's probably a little tone deaf. Sorry. But yeah, like it's, I don't know where they're going to go. Now, some of them may move from agencies into the freelance space, and that's a different kind of competition, but I am much better in a freelancer to freelancer battle situation. If I need to outcompete someone that's doing a project like that, than I am going agency versus agency. That's still something that I have a lot to learn, and I am learning. And the way that I'm learning is hey, how did you do that? Hey, do you mind sending me the deck that you used to win that business? Is that okay if you show me that? Even if it's something they lost, if they made it to the second place mark, I still am curious to see. So, yeah. Anyways, you caught me rambling again. You caught me monologuing. Was that from
No, there's a lot to, but the one thing before, because I think it's getting pretty late here, and we touched on quite a lot of topics, but I'm still really curious. I can't really escape this without asking you, like, what was the reason you said that when you sell cold email, you shouldn't try to sell it via cold email? Oh, and vice versa in general. Like, do you have experience with that, or like what's?
Yeah. No, it's the medium. It's the medium. Most people can't tell the difference between a good cold email and a great cold email. And so sending them a cold email to do that, a lot of them aren't even sold on it. On the fact that, like, cold calling and selling to strangers is effective in any sort of digital frame. And I think that I just, from experience, I've sent, over the years, probably hundreds of millions of cold emails for clients and for myself over the years. And it's when you're using email to sell email, it's just not as effective. And I think it has to do with the medium. So I know it to be true because I've seen it. Granted, have I sold cold email with cold? Yeah, I have, but it's mainly handcrafted stuff. It's not, I'm going to go hit this list of 20,000, business consultants with 11 or more employees and the manufacturing industry, and try to sell them the fact that they could get more clients if they hire me to write and manage and execute their email campaigns. Because that's just a piece of the puzzle. And that's the challenge of going narrow, is that they still are going to need all of this other stuff to be successful. They're likely going to need pay-per-click. They're likely going to need SEO. They're likely to need website content, the static content on the site. They're likely going to need a CRM. They probably are going to need to invest in some traditional advertising too eventually. Like, we're still just a piece of the puzzle. So I think that the time, if you're selling cold email, would best be invested in certain marketplaces and nurturing those referral sources and building influence. Because regardless of what happens with the technology or the economy, email is going to be around for a while longer, or something, or some form of messaging, words on a page. People are always going to be reading something, at least in our lifetimes. I think that the switching the medium is more effective. So, it's I think that it's almost a sensory thing too. Like,
What do you mean?
I think that sensory, meaning that they need to use their ears to be sold, not their eyes. That's why I think having a sales background is important. So, but as I said, I could be wrong. I wish I was wrong. It'd be so much easier for me just to mash out some cold emails and see what happens. I broke one of my domains yesterday. Testing out a different kind of cold email. They had like something on like a transactional engine, and it went from like 40% open rates to like 5% overnight. I'm like, oh my God, I just burned out the domain. It was a test. It was an experiment. It failed hard. It was just a fucking face plant, man. It was.
Yeah.
So that's part of the deal, right? So
yeah, the problems with writing email campaigns.
Well, writing for yourself too. It's like, I'm really good at writing cold email, and here's a cold email talking all about how ice cold my cold emails are. Like, it sounds really douchey, Yeah.
No, I actually, that's why the reason I'm asking, because I myself, all the clients I've had so far were actually from Upwork, so not cold email myself.
Yep.
I had some calls, but I never yet landed. So that's why I wanted to, like actually explore this thought. But I was thinking that this could be the case. That's why I started investing more in LinkedIn, because I see that probably the changing the medium might be might be the way to
LinkedIn
go.
connection requests all day long. Like we have that baked into most of our email work now for B2B, because they just complement each other. It's like chocolate and peanut butter. They just complement each other so well. So I'm just not, there's challenges. So.
You mean that when you're running the campaigns now, the email campaigns?
We'll run LinkedIn outreach, like connection request campaigns in parallel with email. And then the connection requests get followed up with emails eventually. But we usually run them in parallel, because certain prospects, certain people, and buyers in different industries are more active on LinkedIn than they are their inboxes, or less distracted on LinkedIn than they are in their inboxes. So yeah, we run both. It's still the equivalent of a cold email. It still triggers a notification, still shows up in somebody's inbox or some sort of mailbox. It's just a different thing. And that's honestly, that's our next frontier is SMS.
Oh yeah.
SMS. Like the technology's there, and I've seen people do it all right, but I haven't seen anyone yet do it really well, which means there's an opening. So technically speaking, I figured out how to, the technology piece is I think much more manageable now than it was a couple of years ago. But, writing LinkedIn connection requests, you're limited to, between 250 and 300 characters, depending on if you're using merge tags or not. That is not a lot. It's like a couple of tweets. That limitation of writing, hundreds of connection requests for different campaigns over the years, well, probably thousands now, a lot. That was a good training ground for SMS. I'm not convinced it would work cold, but I think for nurturing, I think it's needed. We also do comics now too. I've got one of our guys is an artist, like more of an illustrator, and he'll like to cave in it up. All the caveman stuff you see on the site is just his doodles. So we've actually used those doodles and added a headline to it, printed it on, nicer paper, thrown it, wrote a little note on the back, throw it in an envelope, hand address it, hand stamp it. Nothing's printed other than the actual comic. And we mail it off to people. And there's people that I found out recently, that still have our little comics pinned up on their boards. So now it's not cost effective at all. You're talking like, like the services that do that in mass, it's like $5 per piece of mail.
I think it's lower, because I don't know. I actually, when you are saying SMS is the one you want to explore, for me, I've really been thinking hard. I thought about it a few months ago, but then I decided to, for now, just focus on one service. But I really was thinking of exploring direct mail, because I really like to do the opposite of everyone's doing. And I'm like, okay, everyone's going technology. Everyone's like trying to figure out, how like can I go digital? But like that opened up the space for direct mail, where like when someone gets a direct mail now, it's like, holidays for them. They maybe never got one, or if they got, it's like, super amazing. And now there are the services online where you can make like workflows with like email and like postalytics.
Yeah, the ones that are handwritten, so they are handwritten by a machine, but still with the pen, or like you have to buy a ton of volume to get it below $5 a piece, because the shipping and printing costs by itself, you're looking at, $1.50 per piece if it's in an envelope. And then you put in the other charges. They have to make money too, and they've got people with good handwriting that work in a room and just write out addresses and notes all day. They actually like that. They hire that out. It'd be nice if it was cheaper, but that limitation is why getting one of those is special, because it's hard. As soon as it becomes easy, marketers like us are going to fucking ruin it by overusing it. And then it's not going to be nice anymore. It's not going to feel special. So,
but if you have an account that's like, I mean, if a client, he has those deals that are worth it, I feel like that there could be a product, market fit where you would like do this campaigns.
Yeah. Well, I think Bond is the name of one of the companies that does that.
Oh, really?
Bond.co, I think. And they do the kind of like I think they use like a robot writer. It's like a little machine, but it looks pretty real. But at the end of the day, like I mean, I know how I like to be sold to. And if some of the people trying to get my business right now would write me a little note and put it in the mail, at minimum, they would get a call from me and I would hear their pitch. And I'd probably refer a business too. Like that level of, because everyone wants to be wanted. Everyone wants to be desired. Everyone wants to be chased. But it's very instinctual, an instinctual need. And it's not rational, but I guess it might be like an evolutionary standpoint, but they want to be pursued, right?
Yeah.
So it's, people being a little persistent with me is fine. If it's over automated persistence, it's not okay. That's the challenge, right? Is like, that's the challenge of all this stuff, is like, it's the human touch, man. Human to human. So, yeah. We are way over time. What time is it over there right now?
Yeah, exactly. It was
pushing midnight.
No, it's 9:45. So
that's fucking late. All right.
Yeah, I think we have to wrap this up. But I got really, fascinated with your talk. There's so many questions I could ask, but it's
no, we could do a follow up too, man. You could always just call me and like, hey, Nate, ask me questions. It's not like I said, the reason I took it is you interacted. You went out in an organic fashion, and you weren't like trying to sell me anything. You just wanted to talk. That's,
Yeah, I actually, when I joined the Caving It Up, I didn't even have the idea of like inviting you as a guest yet. It was like pre-planned or anything.
Yeah, no, it's fine, man. Just gonna keep, I am gonna be getting back into podcasting, but we're Billy Gold, who's on all the calls with me. He's like my creative foil. He's just the guy. He does all the artwork. He just tons of crazy ideas. Most of his ideas aren't usable in business, but he generates them so fast. Like he's like a machine. It's a skill. We're going to be doing a podcast on conversation, specifically the science and psychology and discipline of conversation. So we've got a list of people like linguists, cultural anthropologists, pickup artists, used car salesmen. We're going to talk to people that are actual in their own areas, experts in conversation, and kind of unpack the science behind it. So that's the next project. That's the next big thing. So, yeah.
I actually took away my last question. That was supposed to be, so what's next for Nate? And then that's it.
Yeah, no, it's inbox attack. It's called the code name Barracuda, because we haven't come up with a title yet.
That's very like, I think that's your office Air Force times.
Yeah, I
Barracuda.
guess. I don't know where I got that from. It was probably from a TV show, actually. I steal most of my ideas from good movies. Uh, no, yeah. The next, honestly, is launching. I mean, we're going to continue doing caving it up. We're going to continue doing caving it up until people don't need it anymore. Which I hope we get to that point eventually, like that we can actually meet in person again instead of having to do it in a Zoom room.
Mm.
And I'm going to keep slinging email. That's what's paying the bills right now, right? So I'm just happy to still be employed and busy enough. I wish I was a little busier, but some of my fun projects got put on pause. But I'm just happy I'm still in the game. I'm seeing a lot of there's some companies that are dying on the side of the road right now that were long overdue, and it's not great. But there's other ones, so there's some good folks going down with it too, though, from an economic standpoint. So we'll see. Doom and gloom. So
yeah. Any last words, Nate? Do you want to leave something behind?
Honestly, it's if people want to get in touch with me, Nate at inboxattack.com. I do practice inbox zero, meaning that I read and usually reply to everyone's emails. Sometimes I'll let them know, hey, that question's too big. It's going to cost you money to answer it. Or go read these 15 books because that's what it's going to take for you to learn this. But I like the one-on-one stuff. Like it's something that it's not always profitable, but what's the fucking point of working for yourself if it's got to always be about the money, So reach out and say, hey, ask questions, answer questions. I don't know. I think that's all. Just people can hit me up and ask questions. It's a phrase that I'll leave you with this. Sorry, I wasn't ready for that question at all. I didn't coach myself very well for this podcast. I would say that in the current time and it's a good advice outside of crisis, but it's especially relevant during times of turbulence and fear, or fear is the primary emotion, is to be relentlessly useful. I think people need to be relentlessly useful. Because there's a lot of people that need help that even if you offer it to them, they won't take it. So part of that stubbornness is important right now. Like, no, I really want you to have this. I know, So be relentlessly useful. It's something that's been, on the Post-it note at the offices for years now, and I think that it applies right now. So, yep,
That's a good thought.